November 22, 1963. For over 60 years, this date has echoed through time like a gunshot, a single shot that shook the world. On this day in Dallas, Texas, John F. Kennedy was riding in an open-top limousine waving to the crowds lining the street. Just seconds later, shots were fired. The president slumped over, fatally wounded. America, along with the rest of the world, was left in shock. Let's find out. But what exactly went down in Dallas all those years ago? President at the age of just 43. As the leader of the so-called New Frontier, JFK represented hope, change, and a new kind of modern American leadership. While his time in office was relatively short, he made significant strides in civil rights and was revered by many around the globe. At 12:30 p.m. local time, JFK and his wife Jackie boarded their limousine in the Dallas motorcade as it turned into a right onto Houston Street. Passing the Texas School Book Depository, 3 shots rang out. Despite the chaos, the driver of the presidential limousine didn't realize they were under attack until they had traveled several blocks. When he finally slammed on the brakes and turned around, it was too late. The first hit JFK in the upper back, while the second tore into his lower jaw, almost decapitating him. Less than an hour later, at 1 p.m., JFK was declared dead. This sent shockwaves around the globe. Just hours earlier, the president was full of life, waving to crowds of adoring fans. Now he was dead. When the police arrived at the depository, they found a cardboard box containing 2 empty rifle cases and some tissue paper. He was arrested for killing a police officer who died trying to subdue him, and within hours, he was charged with the president's murder. Ballistics later confirmed that the weapon used in the assassination came from this box. These famous words have only added to the mystery surrounding the case. As the evidence mounted against him, Oswald fled to a boarding house, where he was soon surrounded by police. This shocking turn of events only added to the intrigue. This theory suggested that just one bullet caused all of JFK's wounds, as well as those of Governor. Critics argue that this theory is highly unlikely and that the evidence does not support it. Some theories allege that the CIA was involved, while others pointed the finger at the Mafia or inside jobs by political rivals. For example, in 2017, the CIA released over 10,000 pages of declassified files related to the JFK assassination. To this day, there are still a lot of people who believe that the assassination of JFK was a vast government conspiracy that has never been fully uncovered. For many, the death of JFK marked the end of American innocence and the beginning of a darker era in American history. One commentator said, "We might as well have been living in Camelot. We thought we'd always have him. We thought our problems would go away. We thought he'd solve everything. And then that ended." However, despite providing some valuable insights into the events surrounding the assassination, many of the documents were heavily redacted, fueling speculation that the government is still hiding key information from the public. According to the report, Oswald fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. It sparked a massive distrust in the government that has lasted for decades. And it's no wonder why. The death of a president is a traumatic event for any country. But the circumstances surrounding the death of JFK were particularly shocking and disturbing. This grainy footage taken by amateur photographer Zapruder showed the moments leading up to and immediately following the assassination. It provided a visual record of the event that has since become iconic. They argue that because of the polarization and turmoil that was ripping the country apart, something drastic had to happen in order for the country to heal. 2 shots hit JFK, one of which caused fatal brain damage. The 3rd shot wounded both the president and Texas Governor John Connally, who was riding in the car in front of the Kennedys. Despite the release of this film and other evidence, the Warren Commission stuck by its initial findings, concluding that there was no evidence to support the idea that anyone other than Lee Harvey Oswald shot JFK. And while a full investigation would follow, there was still a lot of unanswered questions. The 3rd struck Texas Governor John Connally, who was sitting in front of the Kennedys in the presidential limousine. Staggering crowds of reporters, he told them, "We're going to get to the bottom of this." But even as he pledged justice, no one really knew what had happened or why. It wasn't long before they had a prime suspect, Lee Harvey Oswald, a former US Marine with a history of erratic behavior and communist sympathies. All they knew was that the president was dead and America would never be the same again. They waved to the crowds gathered at the triple underpass on Elm Street. A few minutes later, the motorcade reached the notorious Dealey Plaza. However, there were also many who despised him, including some very powerful people. In 1960, John F. Kennedy became the youngest person ever elected at the height of the Cold War. JFK famously took the world to the brink during the Cuban Missile Crisis. On the campaign trail, he promised to make the communists pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, stand any trial in order to stop them from dominating the Western Hemisphere. Once in office, he kept his word, famously supporting the failed Bay of Pigs invasion and then outmaneuvering Khrushchev in the Caribbean. Back home, he faced another fierce battle as he desperately tried to advance civil rights for African Americans. By 1963, the country was becoming increasingly polarized. There was a lot of tension building, and as the new frontier president toured the volatile South in an attempt to rally support for the cause, some of his biggest enemies felt threatened. Now, whether they would stoop so low as to actually assassinate the president is another story. At this point, JFK was sitting beside Jackie in the back of the limo. As the motorcade sped away, the governor collapsed. Meanwhile, JFK was slumped over his seat, blood pouring from his mouth. With sirens blaring, the presidential party was rushed to Parkland Hospital. Lyndon B. Johnson, JFK's vice president, was immediately sworn in as the 36th president of the United States. Live TV coverage of the assassination helped to shape the public's memory of that fateful day. As the nation reeled from the news, police raced to identify and capture the culprit behind the crime. Oswald had recently been fired from his job at the Texas School Book Depository. When officers entered the room, Oswald calmly asked them, "What can I do for you?" But when questioned about the crime, Oswald consistently denied wrongdoing. In fact, he claimed he was just a patsy. Just 2 days later, as Oswald was being transferred to a jail in Dallas, he was shot and killed live on national television by Jack Ruby. Many conspiracy theories emerged in the wake of the assassination, alleging that the killing of Oswald by Ruby was a cover-up to protect those really responsible. While the official investigation known as the Warren Commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in killing JFK, many disputed these findings from the start. One of the more controversial aspects of the Warren Commission's report was its so-called magic bullet theory. The Zapruder film also added another layer of complexity to the official story. However, the film also raised questions about the trajectory of the bullets and the possibility of a fourth shot being fired. However, over the years, more and more evidence has come to light that suggests that the official story may not be accurate. These declassified files have done little to put the rumors to rest. In fact, they have only added more fuel to the fire. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, many Americans were shocked and horrified. Others believe that the death of JFK was a necessary evil. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the death of JFK had a profound impact on the American people. And even now, more than 60 years later, we are still asking ourselves, who really killed JFK? And why was the truth never fully revealed? Thanks for watching.